kind of suction or silicone looking thing, and that is the contact lens itself. So ultimately, I'm going to kind of isolate your hands into two separate rules. Since you're right hand dominant, you have better motor control, better dexterity with it. Really, all this hand is going to do is all your small micro movements, or really, it just inserts. Your left hand, on the other part, does all your big macro movements. So in this case, such as grabbing the contact lens, moving it from the basically blister pack to your palm, and I just recommend starting with the palm. It's just a really big surface area, and that way you don't end up losing it. And then from there, transferring it up to whichever inserting finger you're going to choose later. So in this scenario, the contact lens, because it's shaped like a suction cup for the most part, when you do scoop it, putting it into your palm is a little bit difficult. So usually if you can, you want to swipe it off on there. If it's a little hard for you to completely swipe it off, you kind of create a little funnel. Just kind of cross your palm around your finger. You kind of just simply pull that out, and essentially it's going to get stuck in your palm instead. At that point in time, the easiest way to manipulate this contact lens is by simply pinching and grabbing it. So now you just want to introduce your thumb, lightly pinch it from the edge there, and you can be really intentional about wherever you want to place that lens. That's kind of how you want to manipulate this. Ultimately, your goal is just to kind of avoid touching that center. It's going to kind of give you two advantages. One of it is that you're not going to touch and contaminate as much. It's not going to dry out the lenses. And not only that, but it's also not going to get stuck to your fingers. So it's be a lot easier for you to actually transfer it around. But aside from talking about it, let's get you playing with it. With your left hand, whatever finger you want, I'm going to have you just scoop that out of there. Ta-da! Feel free to move it to your right palm and familiarize yourself with playing with it. There you are. Good deal. So for now,
Just keep it over the table, honey, so it doesn't fall onto the carpet.
oh, good. You're not really intimidated by this at all. Feel free to just kind of get used to playing with it, manipulate it from moving it from your index finger to your middle finger, from your middle to your ring, and so on and so forth.
Keep it over the table, honey.
Over the counter there. There you are. So avoid that center if you can. That way, again, it doesn't stick onto your finger that way. So if it does ever stick, yeah, feel free to just kind of manipulate it off however you like. It's kind of cool. Cool. Keep playing with it until your heart's content. Once you kind of get a grasp for this, which it seems like you are, ultimately you do want to, again, keep it nice and parallel with the ground, so try not to kind of keep it upside there, otherwise gravity is going to pull it off your finger instead. That's right. And then, are you noticing another property as you kind of play with it, it gets a little dried out, right?
Yeah.
So we've been touching that center, kind of moving it back and forth, and of course, that moisture gets trapped onto your finger instead, or it steals it from the contact lens. So it starts to kind of turn a little bit less sticky. Oh. So in this case, I'm going to have you just transfer and just kind of quickly re-dunk that to just rehydrate it for now. Right inside the blister pack there. Feel free to just dunk it in that way. Good, and feel free to continue playing with it there then. Yeah, that's all right. Get used to manipulating that around. Ultimately, I'll let you tell me whatever you are ready to move on. It seems like you do get the concept and get the grasp of this already pretty easily. And a big part of this is just to make sure that you are not super timid with it. I have kind of two school of thought. Some patients, they're very nervous. They either seen contact lens, they think it's very soft and it's going to evaporate, or I kind of get another one where they've seen their grandparents wear them and they think it's this really hard piece of thing and they're going, oh, I don't want to put this in my eyes. It's a little bit of both. It's quite malleable. It's really flexible.
Over the counter.
It has a very good flexibility with it as well. Good.
How are contacts so flexible?
So primarily it's a polymer plastic with a lot of silicone in it, and that silicone is really, really soft and malleable. And that's what allows it to still have that great shape, because it is still a piece of plastic, but that silicone is nice and soft in your eyes. So that's why it's really flexible. It's kind of flexible in that sense. So again, feel free to work over the counter there, and ultimately you kind of just want to make sure that is nice and, again, parallel with the ground. That way it doesn't fall off, and as it dries out, it will essentially start to not have that adhesive property to it. Seems like you're ready to move on, huh? Okay, I'm going to have you just pick up that lens with your left hand and put it back inside that blister pack. Fantastic. I'm going to reach quickly below you here. I'm going to just grab some solution just that we can kind of hydrate this as we need to. Awesome. So I'm going to move on to the next step here, which is the actual inserting itself. Now that you get a chance to see the contact lens, it's not really that big, but it's also not that small, correct?
Yeah.
Was it smaller or bigger than you thought it would be?
Smaller.
Smaller. Oh, that's good. So I'm going to kind of quickly illustrate what a contact lens would probably look like in somebody's eyeball. So apologize for my illustration. I'm not quite the artist. But this were somebody's eyeball. This is the pupil here. This is the white, the color, and so on and so forth. The contact lens usually spills just a few millimeters past the colored parts of the eye. So basically, it lands somewhere in the white part of their eyes. To insert the contact lens, really, like I mentioned earlier, your goal is just to create big enough openings so you can put the lens in, but it boils down to 3 steps. And you do want to do these steps in sequential order. So you want to make sure you complete first step to second step to third step. So if you kind of skip steps, it does make everything a lot more difficult. The first step is really easy, which since we know the contact lens is slightly bigger than the colored part of your eyes, first step is just look surprised. Get your eyes as big as possible, and obviously by contracting those muscles, well, it gets the opening big enough for that lens to go in. Even though we get our eyes really big, unfortunately, our eyelids can still contract, and so those guys are going to be constantly trying to swat or prevent that lens from going in. So our second step is to develop a hold. That way you can properly pin down the lenses. Earlier, you mentioned that you're right-handed. I'm going to now have you pick a finger you'll probably want to insert the lens in, whether it's your index, your middle, and so on and so forth. Your index, your pointer there. Fantastic. So I'm going to kind of quickly show you what it would look like. Most of the time, you're going to scoop the contact lens out of the blister pack. You'll transfer it to your palm first. From there, you'll transfer it up to your inserting finger. In terms of where you want to place it on your inserting finger, place it wherever intrinsically it makes sense or wherever you feel like you might be touching your eyeball. I usually find if you end up curling that last knuckle there, you want to keep it about roughly 45-degree angle. And that way, as you actually curl it into your eyes, as you can see, it becomes more perpendicular to your eyes. Again, if you only curl that very first knuckle, or you only bend that first knuckle instead of that second one, then you want to keep it relatively parallel. And that way, as you actually bend it in, it's not going to go off-center. Otherwise, again, if you keep it nice and parallel, but you bend that last knuckle, you can kind of see you're going to be going at your eyeball at an angle. And it makes it really difficult for you to put it in. In your case, just looking at your finger, though, you're probably going to want to keep it about 45. So yeah, but place it wherever you feel like you'll probably end up touching your eyeball, essentially. So wherever it might be on your finger pad there. So at this point in time, because the contact lens is now on your index finger up there, more importantly, your left hand is freed and your other fingers on your right hand is freed. And like I mentioned, since we're starting with your right eye, I'm going to kind of show you what the hold looks like. Feel free to follow along if you like. But now, our goal is to make sure that we're grabbing all this excess skin. And how we do that is with our left hand first, we're going to grab right up to the lash line. So your goal is to make sure that you're grabbing all this excess loose skin, and that way it's unable to contract. So again, just we're going to do your right eye first, and your left hand is going to go for top. There you go, just like that. So you want to go right up to the lash line. You just want to basically pull that vertically straight up. So of course now you can kind of see that top lid is not going anywhere. Whichever finger you choose to insert with, your adjacent finger or the finger next to it is going to be your holding finger. So in this case, it'll be your middle finger. So the left hand is already pulling vertically straight up. Your middle finger is going to grab that bottom lid right up to that lash line again, and it pulls vertically straight down. So now you have this really big opening that's not going anywhere. Now again, I'm exaggerating my opening. You do not need to get it nearly as big as what I'm doing. I'm just doing this for the purpose to show you that you can get your eyes pretty darn big. So ultimately, your goal is to make sure you can see the top wide of your eyes, the bottom wide of your eyes, and if you're able to kind of flare that bottom lid where you can kind of see that pink, it'll kind of act like a football receiver. And that way, as you drop your contacts in and you release that bottom lid, it helps you just kind of cradle everything back in place. But again, you don't have to get it really big. You just want to see the full circumference of the colored part of your eyes. That's pretty much it. So again, the main part here is also to make sure that that lid is not going to go anywhere. So if you start with a really big opening, but of course if you blink and this happens, you're going to have a real difficulty time putting it in. Now, the third step is the actual insert itself. So now that we're able to create a big opening, able to pin down those lids so that's unable to contract, now we have this huge oblong, or at least from its oblong shape to a sphere.